I'm quickly going to go into a few fun questions. Now, this is to each and every one of you all in this podcast. The most favorite, I know it's tough to choose, but you have to do it for my podcast. The most fun moment you had while putting this book together individually.
I can start.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it's just the one that pops into my mind. It's not the most fun, but I think it's every article was fun. But this was a bit special because normally we would always have one writer going with me. But this particular character was so curious that we had all of us following her.
Interesting. Okay.
And her name is Diana.
Okay.
She's transgender, and we call her the blessing dispenser.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
beautiful.
you're going to have a repeat because I think she's everybody's favorite. And what happened was we went to her home, and we went before she woke up.
Okay.
So we actually woke her up, and then we saw her entire routine from the moment her eyes opened. When she had her cigarettes, her immaculate home, and the coffee she makes for herself, dressing up in her sari for the day, putting on her makeup, and then stepping out in her elegance and aura.
Absolutely.
Buying the lemons that she needs because part of the ritual that she performs while she's dispensing blessings is to capture all the negativity from the person she's blessing and squeeze it out into the lemon so that it can go hit somebody else later. And for me, like just following her, I mean, it was Farah's driver, Sharif, who drove us, and we were just so fascinated. And it remains a favorite moment ongoing because Tanya's designer Prashant called me one day and he was so excited. He's like, and this is like 5 years after we finished this following. And he's been designing the book. He's never met Diana. But he's been looking at her on the page. And then he calls me from the street. He's like, Kav, I just saw Diana.
How beautiful.
So, I mean, it just brings the person into your life.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big one.
Thank you, Kabir.
Yeah, I feel like you stole mine, but
Every month you're all taking what do you say?
yeah. So I guess I don't know if this is necessarily fits in the fun category, but interviewing S.M. Krishna was such an incredible experience for me. He was so warm and welcoming and clearly enjoyed telling stories and telling me about his life and things that he had done as a young man in the U.S. and what brought him back and what got him into politics. And I was just sort of awestruck that I got to sit with this sort of elder statesman and hear from his own mouth what Bangalore has become and what he's so proud of in this city.
Absolutely.
And I carry that with me. I love that.
He's such a huge part of the Bangalore story. I mean, I think when we lost him a few days ago, I think each one of us felt that pinch because he's so much a part of the story. So
Absolutely.
I'm so happy you got to write that story.
Me too.
Farah?
I have the opposite because I'm trying to think. I have so many. I have too many. It's
have
not
to
just
choose one,
Diana.
though.
Yeah, I know. I was like, should I go for the snake catcher? Because that was a whole business. But I'm actually going to go for Prem Koshi because my mother-in-law went to Mount Carmel. She was born here, Bangalorean, and she would talk about koshis, and everybody would talk about koshis. And I was like, okay, well, it's just a cafe. And I hadn't been. And the first time I went was to interview Prem, and I was like, oh, I love koshis too. He was talking a lot about the symbiotic relationship of, nature and work in Bangalore and how it is the garden city and the IT city, but also that the tree is giving me oxygen and I'm giving it carbon dioxide, and that we all exist together, helping each other in this symbiotic relationship. And it was such a metaphor for Bangalore. And you see all the connections between all our characters. There are some real symbiotic relationships in there that we didn't know when we first started. So for me, it was fun because Prem is an amazingly fun person and he brings so much energy to any interview, to any interaction, but also because he gave me like this deeper insight that informed the rest of my interviews.
How lovely.
Oh,
Beautiful. I'm so happy that you brought up Prem Koshi and Koshis because what's really striking me right now about the book is how timeless this book is going to be. Because you did this 5 years ago, 6 years ago. just last weekend, I think social media in Bangalore erupted over someone who put a terrible review of Koshi's and called it one of the worst restaurants in Bangalore. Yes, there was such bad pushback. And everyone was just like, it doesn't matter whether you like the food or not, but you don't get to risk cooking.
So I found out that my grandfather, when he left Pakistan to move to India and came and settled down in Bangalore for a short period of time, he would have his meetings in the early 50s in Koshi's, right? And when I moved here, I said this to Prem yesterday. I said, Prem, what's the record for the longest time someone has spent at Koshi's? And I thought I was going to win. I swear to God, because when I moved here and I wasn't working, I had nothing else to do. I didn't have a design studio, so I used to work out of there 9 hours.
Wow.
9 hours from morning to evening, and I used to smoke in those days. And, someone would go and get that, oh gosh, people watching, but okay, And I said to Prem, I said, so do I get the prize? And he said, absolutely not. There are people who are there from the time it opens till I have to kick them out, till they leave. So
True.
that's Koshi's,
Fabulous.
So your favorite moment?
Yeah, I also have some dark sides. You talk too much, ask too much questions, right? I have a difficulties to decide. So I will come with 2 stories then. So first one I love that is when I came to the office of Infosys for the Mr. Murthy photo shoot. They told, okay, he's a very busy man. You don't take too much time. I was like, okay, that's not my style. I'm a documentary sports action photographer. I don't set up. And then we came to the place. He was like, okay, where is your studio? And I had like my flash and my camera, and I put dupatta I bought on the market just on the way, black one. I put it on top of the TV screen on one of his big conference room, like, this is my studio. He's like, oh, okay. And then we did a few clicks. I saw that it's already good enough, and I let him go to do more important things than that. And my other story is with Sri Ravi Shankar. So I came to ashram to make a photo of him with my daughter in Naini. My daughter was 3 months old, and they told, like, he's not there. We don't know when he's coming, so you have to wait. And we checked in the hotel and hotel room with my nanny and the kid. And they told, tomorrow we start the Art of Living course. Why don't you join? Okay. And I was like, fantastic, I would. And then the day I actually graduated, he came, and I was invited to the Arta to do all this blessing with fire. And then it was a big meeting with all the kids that study under him. So I actually get enlightened through the book,
Fabulous.
So that's 2 of my favorite stories.
What a lovely story. And finally, Tanya.
Wow. Okay. So the thing is, like I said, I was the last to jump on board with this motley crew. So all the stories were pretty much done by the time I came on board. Other than, I think, Abhishek and Nikhil and Manu. These were the last 3 that we added. So sadly, I don't have the experiences that they have. But I think that on the flip side, because I was not as involved as they were while they were getting the stories together, I worked extra hard at getting to know these characters through what they had documented. And one of the things that plays an important role in the way you meander through the book is the connections that we have made for you to kind of to see things that you would not have otherwise have seen. So for example, you have like a Kiran Mazumdar followed by Rupa Mudgal, followed by Kamla. And Kiran, we all know, doesn't need an introduction. Rupa is like this incorruptible cop, right? And Kamla is a survivor in the slums. And Kiran says that, she feels that women are more empathetic leaders and that they have a stronger moral compass. And after that, you read Rupa's story, who says, like, I will create a ruckus, okay? And don't mess with me, because I will not bend the rules, and I may get unpopular, but I will get the job done. And then you've got Kamla, who's a real fighter, and she's a survivor, and she's working really hard to educate her kids and make them independent and college educated. So, there are 3 very strong female stories from completely different walks of life.
Absolutely.
But one has been very deliberate about the way we are sequencing them, because we want you to see those connections. There's a shared thread, So I think making those connections from the distance that I had has been a really exciting part of the design process.
Fabulous.
So speaking of the sequencing, I think left up to us, if you hadn't done the sequencing in the way that you did, we probably would have gone in alphabetical order, A to Z. But thankfully, you came in and you had that distance from this to actually look for the logic, right? And not try to treat everybody so equally that we go alphabetical. But also while you were doing that and you were starting to point out these connections, we started to see more things that had actually already come out in the interviews. Like when we had gone and met Janardhan Iyengar, who's a Brahmin elder who is often heard and seen at the Malleshwaram Krishna temple. We had actually followed him by his voice and then sat and interviewed him and included him in our book. And he told us that he used to be Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's PT teacher.
Wow.
So he's connected with Sri Sri. And then, on the other hand, Sri Sri has shared 7 flights with the German expat Gerd Hoffner, who happens to be my first boss when I was in Siemens. And then there's Sibi Venkatraju and SM Krishna. Sibi came back from the US and Singapore to India, and he's very skeptical by nature. So he didn't really believe that this was the place to be, but he was just giving it a shot. And he'd sent an email to SM Krishna's office. And he was surprised to see a response within a week.
Wow.
You know, with all the right connections that he needed to just get things going. You know, the bureaucracy was disappearing and his belief was then instilled in Bangalore.
How lovely.
And he invested here. And today you have him and Toit,
Absolutely.
as iconic of Bangalore.
True.
So in that way, we found so many connections from, looking more closely at the list and at the sequencing that Tanya was bringing out. But before I give the mic back to you, I want to acknowledge that we are 5 in this room with you, but we are actually 6 on the book cover, 6 authors. There's Chris Page, who's a math teacher. He's a math teacher in China with a special love for his camera.
Oh, lovely.
He specializes in street photography, and he came in to complement and supplement Katya. As she was leaving, he stepped in and he did about 20 plus of the characters.
Nice.
And so we just want to make sure that he's also acknowledged
Absolutely.
as a great contributor in this book. Wonderful energy, and it's sad he wasn't here with us today.
But we celebrate him.
I was also very worried that how that's going to be, because it's like something that you want to have a consistency with the style and colors and so on. And I'm really happy how it turned out, that the same like you don't know which story who wrote, the same with us, with photography. I'm very happy that no one can even tell who did what.
Lovely.
And this is the idea that all of us came together, merged together to give the story. So that is very important.
Beautiful. Some things are just meant to happen. Magic is just meant to be created. Something that does completely strike me when I heard all of these beautiful conversations is people often say that, Bangalore has 1 degree of separation, and this book kind of proves that, right? On that wonderful note, we're going to wrap up the conversation. I can't keep you all for any longer. You've had a long afternoon. So before we go, I want you to tell our audience how they get their hands on the book. There's a beautiful exhibition that the book is a part of at MAP. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then we'll wrap up the conversation.
So I'll take that about the exhibition. So, again, 1 degree of separation is an openness of spirit. So when they had all finished the curation and I got involved, and I felt that there was so much had changed after COVID in the cultural landscape of Bangalore, right? I mean, you had BIC, you had MAP, and I said to Kaveri, I said, can we just try and work in a few more stories, and can we get some of that in? So we approached Abhishek to be a story in the book. And Abhishek being Abhishek, I think he's the last in the black and white. And it's a beautiful portrait, just show that, So actually Nikhil and Abhishek were the last to join the book. And Abhishek being Abhishek, and he's an old friend and a client because I'd done the branding for MAP. And you give him 1 idea and he'll come back with 5. So he said, beautiful idea for the book, and yes, I'll be in it, but why don't you launch it at MAP? And why don't you do a digital exhibition? And we had never even, conceived of that. And so I thought I was done when the book was done, but it was like a whole other project when we had to do the digital exhibition, and I would urge your viewers to go see it, because the beautiful thing about it is, Katya, open any of your favorite images in this. There is so much depth to these images, and there's so much detail, and despite how big that image may be, when you're in that digital exhibition and you have 3 screens taking up one image and with the glow at the back, the detail you see, you feel like you're in that space. So it's really immersive, and so that was just like a whole other sort of surprise that happened. And so this was happened with this project. I think when you do something from the heart, like, it draws such great energy.
Absolutely.
And the digital exhibition has been just one such magic that happened, actually.
How long
from
is it
this.
for?
It's going to be there forever, because
lovely.
it's archived, right? So you can go anytime and choose whichever show you want, and it's there.
Fabulous.
So you can always see it.
That's great news to our audience, yeah.
And very important that our book is featured on the internet site, on an Instagram. Bangalorean.com is our site, and Book Bangalorean is our Instagram, where we will put a lot of behind the scene pictures, and of course when I was shooting is much more pictures that are not in the book, and we will try to make the story live beyond the book. So please join bookbangalorian.com.
Very nice.
Talk about where to buy the book.
We will put that in the bottom of this video description, don't worry.
And to buy the book, there are only 1,000 copies printed with no exact plan to reprint, so we could call it a limited edition. You can look up bookbangalorian.com, in which there is a place where you can fill a form to order, or just write to bookbangalorian@gmail.com, and you will get a response within 12 hours.
Fabulous. To end the conversation, my last question to each and all of you in this podcast is, now that you've told Bangalore your beautiful story, how else can they follow your amazing work? What are you individually, each of you, what are you doing in your own lives? And how can we be a part of this beautiful process that you kind of shared with Bangalore? What else are you doing, and how can we follow you?
So I have a design company called TSK Design, and I'm Tanya Singh Khosla, and I'm a multidisciplinary designer who has been working in the space of branding and communication for many years in Bangalore. So many of the things you see around Bangalore in terms of branding is designed by us. But I'm on to other interesting things now. I'm working with craftspeople and doing products. And you can see, it's Tanya Singh Khosla. I think I'm terrible on social media. Tanya Singh Khosla is my Instagram handle, and TSK Design India is our Instagram handle for our design studio, so you can see what we're doing there.
Fabulous.
I run the media agency for sailing. So we do media communication for events and sailors, and recently we started to work with the ocean race and Vendée Globe Sailor. So that's what I do now. And I also try now to do black and white photography for very famous sailors. So that you can also follow me on Instagram, Katya Antoni. That's my personal, and Matryoshka Media, it is my company.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Before I introduce myself, I'd like to introduce Chris. So Chris Page, a math teacher in China, teaching math and physics to Chinese children.
Lovely.
You can follow him on you can follow him on pagespics.com, which is his blog. And he doesn't do it all the time, but when he does it, it's a lot of fun.
Fabulous.
And then me, Kaveri Singhji. So I'm a social anthropologist. I work in Sweden with diversity and inclusion. But I also continue to run my company, One World, whose brand Culture Rings is better known for its work with cross-culture. So culturerings.com. And then there are not too many Kaveri Singhjis, so look for me by name.
True.
So part of what made this book such an incredible experience for me was that it was completely different from what I do with the rest of my life. So before and after the book, I work in healthcare. I work in healthcare quality improvement, and actually while I was living in Bangalore, I was also working with government hospitals in Bihar. And now that I'm back in the US, I'm working with hospitals all across the United States to help them better respond to medical harm when things go wrong in care. So nothing related to this at all, which just makes it such a delight for me.
Absolutely.
So Farah Gilani, I work at the British Embassy in Stockholm, and the Indian Embassy is very close, and we share restaurant recommendations and all sorts of cultural exchanges in Stockholm. So I am, promoting Bangalorean there too.
Thank you so much.
In my own mini way of being a diplomat and getting the two countries together.
Fabulous. Thank you so much to the team for putting this beautiful book together. If you haven't paid attention, that's what it looks like. It's a beautiful book. Do try and get a copy because there's only 1,000 printed. And before we end this conversation, I think a huge thank you from Bangalore to the whole team for doing this for the city, because I think Bangalore is one of those cities where we don't have so much written about, the stories behind the city, the stories that drive the city. And it's so nice that we have a book that we can all look forward to. And thank God it's not a coffee table book. On that beautiful note, we come to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.